And welcome to the Country Telegraph. Nice to have your company too. It's a Tuesday. Sometimes I just get lost in the days of the week. There are just so many. I think we need to have two, Saturday and Sunday, and the rest are just cancelled. I wonder if my next guest thinks so too. Maybe not. Who knows? We'll find out. Anyway, some of the news that's making headlines around the country. Norco has announced a 5 cent per litre increase to its farm gate milk price from May 2026, while calling on the wider industry to step up and better support farmers as soaring input costs intensify pressure right across the sector. Farmers are taking their most conservative approach in decades ahead of the Anzac Day sowing window. That's with up to 10% of Australia's winter crop area at risk of being left not planted. Think about the prices at the supermarket, and they're way overpriced now. Western Australia's crop area will drop by more than 500,000 hectares in 2026 as farmers abandon marginal paddocks amid rising cost and falling grain profitability. The green dream, that's a proliferation of solar panels across the Mallee, could turn into a nightmare, according to member for Mallee, Dr. Ann Webster. She said the truth is laid bare that the almost 90% of the panels will end up in landfill. And they'll just sit there, not too much at all. Oh, my house is built on some solar panels. No wonder the floor felt warm. The Commonwealth Department of Climate Change and Energy has warned the panels that reach their end of life would end up in landfills. Maybe we should just go back to the good old-fashioned way. You know, it worked. Swan Hill Rural City Council has secured a $5 million grant in funding in 2024 to deliver 10 worker accommodation dwellings at 3 McCartney Court in Robinvale. Construction of the dwellings and site development is now well advanced, with the budget figures indicating the project will be delivered way under budget. Please contact the Victorian Government if you wouldn't mind. That would just be dandy. That's about it for the news making news around Australia. Coming up next, we'll talk what the hell's happened to Australia.
What kind of country do we want to leave to our kids when we're gone? It's something that's very much at the forefront of my mind now that I have two little boys of my own. I want them to grow up in the Australia I knew. Prosperous, cohesive, confident, and unmistakably Australian. I grew up in what I still believe was one of the greatest eras in human history to be alive in the 90s and 2000s. The world felt safe. Australia was economically open, yet culturally secure. We were wealthy and proudly patriotic. Our population was growing, but sustainably. 50 years of steady selective inflows, Southern Europeans post-World War II and then Vietnamese refugees after the fall of Saigon, had been successfully integrated into a thick, dominant Australian culture. Newcomers arrived in manageable numbers, learned English, adopted our values and for the most part became part of the mainstream. But that success made us naive. Because earlier migration had worked, many Australians came to assume that migration at any scale, from any source, under any conditions, would always work. When migrant communities reach a critical mass in certain suburbs, assimilation stops being possible or even desirable for them. This was an emerging problem in the late 2000s and 2010s, but under Labor, especially post-COVID, it has become a full-blown crisis. Faced with collapsing productivity and an unwillingness to cut state spending and address our state and federal debt after the pandemic, the Labor government has been treating humans as a form of quantitative easing. In just 3 years, they brought in nearly 2 million people to create artificial demand and consumption, which gave them economic growth on paper, while our real living standards collapsed. Housing has become completely unaffordable for young families. Rents have skyrocketed. Our infrastructure can't keep up, and our experience of government services is now woeful, and wages in many migration-exposed sectors have stagnated or gone backwards. Today, almost all of Australia's net population growth comes from overseas migration and births to recent migrants. As the baby boomer generation ages out and our fertility rate sits dangerously below replacement, this flywheel of demographic change is accelerating, not slowing down. On current trends, heritage Australians are projected to become a minority in their own country by the mid-2030s, perhaps as low as 30% by 2035.
Incredible. Gerard Holland is the CEO of the Page Research Centre, which has produced a very good report on options for Australia on fuel and national security. Born and raised on a farm in Greenethorpe, New South Wales, Gerard is firmly of the belief that better outcomes for rural Australia will lead to better outcomes for all Aussies. Prior to joining Page, Gerard was the Director of Outreach and Strategic Partnerships at the Alliance for Responsible Citizenship in London. That would have been a challenge, that one, and led the secretariat, for the Legatum Institute's Transformation of Society program. Now, Gerard has also worked as an electorate officer to former Regional Development and Communications Minister and Deputy Leader of the National Party, the Honourable Fiona Nash. First of all, Gerard, thanks for joining us.
Mike, thanks for having me.
Nice video, by the way. Very forthright. Tell us about your report. Just abbreviate it for us.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Australians are going through an enormous amount of pain at the moment at the Bowser, and fuel prices, I'm very concerned, are going to continue to rise. But this is due to a conflict on the other side of the world, upstream from many of our supply chains in the Middle East. And what we set out to do, and we actually started this work over a year ago, and we had no idea how timely this report would become, was to find out, well, how secure are we, how resilient are we, should a conflict occur in our own region. And as we're finding out at the moment, over 95% of Australia's liquid fuels are imported on ships, and there is nothing more vulnerable than a boat on the water. You've got a third-rate power in Iran that's able to hold back the greatest military the world has ever seen in the US, and the strongest military power in the region of Israel, completely keeping at bay in the Strait of Hormuz, because ships are vulnerable, be it drones, missiles, submarines, mines, even just the threat of losing millions and millions of dollars of infrastructure and of losing lives. I mean, a lot of these private companies aren't willing to take the risk. And so Australia is dangerously exposed to this particular circumstance. But there is a solution, and our land abounds in nature's gifts, as we say in the anthem, and we actually have everything we need to give ourselves full self-sufficiency for our liquid fuels right here at home. All that we really have been lacking to date has just been the political will to do something about it.
Tell me about the response from government and the mainstream or legacy media. Warm, lukewarm, or just really cold?
Well, look, I mean, the government's response to this crisis has been absolutely embarrassing. I mean, you've got Albanese going out hat in hand begging nations with smaller populations than ours, with no resources whatsoever, that import everything that they use to give us fuel. You know, we are a resource-rich continent. We're not just an island, we're not just a country, we're a continent with thousands of years of natural resources, and we are going around begging to Singapore, begging to Japan, begging to South Korea that they might spare some liquid fuels for us. But we've also heard from Chris Bowen saying, oh, look, fuel reserves, they're a thing of the past. With electrification and renewables, we aren't going to need them anymore. Well, that again, either he doesn't understand his brief or he is dangerously indoctrinated with his own ideology. Australia still very much relies on liquid fuels. It's over 60% of our total energy usage. So if you think about electricity, it's 30 to 40%. The remainder of that is liquid fuel usage. So if we were to electrify everything, we would need to increase our grid and our electricity capacity by another 60%, which, I mean, we can barely keep the lights on right now. And then of that liquid fuel that we use, only 30% of that is passenger vehicles. When you look at freight, when you look at mining, when you look at agriculture, when you look at rail, when you look at our aerospace, all of that very much relies on diesel, and these are not sectors that are going to be electrified anytime soon, or arguably within our lifetimes.
It's incredible. We both would agree that we need to ditch net zero. How do we do that?
Well, I mean, it takes the stroke of a pen. We have spent...
It's not that easy, though, really. So many things are in place. The process, it could take forever, or could take a relatively short amount of time. So to ditch it, because the government is very, very clever in what they've done. They've put in so many mandates, so many cross the T's and dotted the I's, and so many different things to unwind it. It could be, and you look at our previous governments, they've also done the same thing with their particular projects that they absolutely love. So how do we actually wind back net zero? Because it's not that easy. You can't just sign it off because there are so many things in place at the moment.
Well, obviously to start with, you need the political mandate, but you are right. Like there is no soft landing to any of this stuff. If you look at both on the legislative arena, the way that Labor has essentially booby-trapped and set little pieces of sleeper legislation that would have to be unwound, and that is going to be a process that you would need to command a majority in both houses. And just to give an example of that, Labor last year slipped into a bill that said that fossil fuel extraction can't be used as an excuse to accelerate under national security grounds, right? There is no impending reason why we should accelerate these projects. And they've now had to go back and wind that back in the House because obviously we need more liquid fuels in country. So there are those booby traps. But probably the more difficult thing to get around is the transmission and the distribution network rollout. Now, we are facing cost blowouts across the country at the moment. There was a brilliant article by Robert Gottliebson in The Australian last week where he tallies up at the rate that these projects are blowing out, we're looking at about $1 trillion to rewire the nation. Now, if you were tomorrow to say, okay, we're not going to do this anymore, what do you do with the stranded assets and what do you do with the stranded poles and wires? And that is another difficult political conversation to have. I'm in the camp, and this might not be popular and it's one to be debated out. I think it has to be written off by the government. I think this has to be absorbed. And when we're thinking about debt, when we're thinking about the kind of spending we need to wind back, I think these are things we're going to need to calculate in, because the alternative is if we don't, we're going to have these stranded white elephants that everyone is going to be paying for, and it means we will not have cheap power for decades. And just to give you a quick example of how bonkers this all is, up until very recently, 80% of New South Wales's power was generated and consumed within a little ring around Sydney and the Hunter Valley. Now this meant you had a dense network, you had the coal-fired power stations there, you had all the industry that spots up around there, about 60% of electricity usage. It is industry, it isn't just homes and households, but then most homes and households were in that basin, were, obviously in Sydney, our biggest city in the country. Now we are building this vast sprawling network all across the country, poles and wires, across people's farms, across mountain ranges, to then get that power back into Sydney and back into the Hunter where our remaining industry is. So the challenge is, if we were to unwind this, we probably need to put more coal-fired power units or nuclear, or at least some dense dispatchable power close to where it's going to be consumed, but you still have to deal with this vast sprawling network. And at the moment, that is going onto people's bills, and a lot of that hasn't even begun yet. We're going to see over the next 5 to 10 years, year on year, power bill increases just to pay for the transmission and distribution that our state and federal government signed us off on.
Isn't it interesting, the transition from what worked to what doesn't work, and now we're saying we have to transition from what doesn't work, which is not working yet because they haven't transitioned from the other one. But we have to still transition to something new. A lot of transitions there. Perhaps the government should transition. I could think of maybe a short trip to the Strait of Hormuz. Not that I'm suggesting anything nefarious, but they have truly stuffed things up. What do you suggest we do? Okay, say for example, if they say, next government gets in, and by the way, I haven't got a lot of faith in the next government either, because they were quite outwardly woke before, following the save the planet philosophy, and destroyed at the same time as the Labor Party has pronounced. We have a new leader, a couple of new leaders there. Matt Canavan is leading the Nationals. At the end of the day, though, I have this suspicion. If you look at Victoria under Jess Wilson, Victoria, they're still supporting most of the renewable projects, and so if we get another government in, what they should do, if it's a Conservative government, is one, make sure that the power stations we have at the moment don't stop. Secondly, maybe if we go nuclear, because it's a very, very clean source of energy, and we got plenty of uranium here. So where do you think we should go? What do you think we should do? How do you think we should do it? Because I've got no idea. I think we're down this path that Chris Bowen has taken us, and I think behind us the path is just disappearing. So I don't know how we're going to get out of this one.
Well, so if you want cheap power in the next 5 to 10 years, really the only off-ramp there is more coal. But if you want cheap power for your kids and your grandkids, then you should be building nuclear power stations. So it really should be an and as well approach, not an either or approach. Now, one of the biggest challenges is there is quite a good commercial case for both of those projects. And I know, for example, KEPCO, a Korean state-backed corporation, they were very interested in potentially building nuclear power stations here, but they were turned away because the Albanese government wasn't interested in opening that conversation because it went against their narrative that no one would fund it. So there has been private interest from overseas in these kind of projects. But the challenge with coal is right now, all of our coal-fired power stations are still very profitable because we've completely shattered the spot market. In those afternoon peaks, when you have a heightened price because you've had that massive withdrawal of solar and oftentimes wind from the grid, and then with that elevated price over the evening when there is no solar power generated, these coal-fired power stations are still making back enough money to remain lucrative and remain solvent. And we saw this again in New South Wales with the extension of Eraring. That didn't require any government-backed support. That was a private decision made by Origin because of the commercial viability of that project. Now, the difficulty is, how are you going to convince a private company to build more of these kind of assets that we're desperately going to need when, as you rightly pointed out, state and federal government, bipartisan, they've spent the last 10 years trying to shut them down and accelerate these closures. So there's a lot of stuff you'll need to scrap. You'll need to scrap the net zero targets. You'll need to remove the safeguard mechanism. You'll need to reform AEMO, the Australian Energy Market Operator, and make sure that they aren't prioritising emissions reductions over the cost to electricity. And many people wouldn't know that when they bake into their decisions, what do we include into the grid, they are adding a shadow carbon price into that. So again, they are artificially inflating the price of fossil fuels to kind of dissuade investment. You probably need to either remove the capacity investment scheme, which is subsidising renewables when they aren't economically viable, or bring coal or nuclear into that. Now, there are strong debates for either side, but either way, it desperately needs reform. But I don't see how you're going to attract that private capital, because these are 50, 60, 100-year investments without some kind of state underwriting, partial or full state ownership. Because the fact is, like, if you're a businessman, why would you invest in this space right now when it's been so deeply politically contested? And the other thing, and Matt Canavan mentioned this in his press club address a fortnight ago, I think it was, there are companies that were trying to get oil refineries up and running. There are companies that are trying to get coal to liquids and other fossil projects up and running, and they can't open bank accounts. It's not even that they can't get the capital. They can finance the capital overseas because no one will fund it here, but they can't open the bank accounts in country because we have the big four banks that refuse to even deal with the fossil fuel industry. So it is this dark web of entanglement between activists, between government, and now some aspects of the private sector and the financial system. This is what needs to be unravelled. But it's not going to be easy. But actually removing net zero as a target, removing it as binding legislature, and then adjusting these things like the safeguard, like the capacity investment scheme, like AEMO, which the government can do in a week, assuming it has the majority. These are really important signals that do begin to send shockwaves through everything else. And look, to the point about Victoria still supporting this, no renewable projects are getting up at the moment. The government is nowhere near going to hit its renewable targets, and this is because they aren't commercially viable. And even under the capacity investment scheme, where we are hosing them down with taxpayer subsidies, there is still not enough margin, because during the day, they're all producing electricity at the same time. They are not solving the fundamental problem of smoothing out supply and demand across the day to meet dispatchable to create dispatchable power for when consumers need to use it. And this is a market problem and an engineering problem that no amount of subsidies can fix. And so there is an argument out there that the whole thing will just collapse on itself anyway, because governments will be that desperate just to keep the lights on that they will themselves start making sure that gas and coal stays solvent, and will probably start investing in these things themselves.
Isn't it funny? I see the Nationals and the Liberal Party. I see them further and further apart, more than ever now. So I do like Matt Canavan very much. I like him. I think he'd be a magnificent Prime Minister. Just quickly, David Crisafulli is very keen and very enthusiastic about the Taroom Trough. We've heard there's not enough there to really provide Australia with enough fuel to maintain a sustainable level. What's your thoughts on the Taroom Trough? And do you think Crisafulli is right in pursuing this?
Look, I think he is assuming that the numbers stack up. I think that the simple truth is there isn't going to be one silver bullet, that if we just did this one project, then all of a sudden every single one of Australia's woes will disappear. Like, what we need is abundance governments at state and federal level that are thinking, how can we approve as much as possible, get as much productivity sparked as possible, and make us as energy and resource rich as possible. Now, Taroom, I think it's a lighter condensate. I don't know if it's got the heavier crude that we would need as a feedstock to produce diesel in this country. Not that we have the right diesel refineries anyway. So there's a whole wave of investment that would need to happen before this particular project began to feed directly into our supply chain security woes. But that isn't a reason not to do it, because it will still provide petrol, it will still provide export revenue, it will still provide those jobs and employment, and it will give us more bartering power in the interim in order to secure the resources that we need. And this is one of the crazy things about this gas debate that we're having at the moment, whether or not we start lapping on all these extra taxes and windfall taxes onto our gas exports at a time when we are actively horse trading gas to bring in more liquid fuel because our own supplies aren't shored up. Now, we need to be thinking more, and approving as much as possible. And I think this is what's been fundamentally wrong, is both state and federal. We've looked at how can we slow and obstruct projects as opposed to getting things moving. Now, look, of course, there are going to be issues around water, there are going to be issues around farmers' land rights, and there's one I'm a big believer that if you have the property rights, you should be free to develop that. And if you don't, well, then maybe we take a bit longer. But if you have the exploration rights, you own the land, and you want to drill it, then why are we stopping you, and why aren't we rolling out the red carpet?
Totally agree. Just quickly, if you were PM, what would you do? Have more? Because I mentioned at the start of the show that I think there's too many days in the week. We should just have Saturday, Sunday. What do you think of that idea?
No, I think I'd leave the work week as it is, and I wouldn't be shorting any days given our productivity crisis.
Oh, bugger.
I think there's three issues that I'm deeply concerned about and have motivated a lot of my work, and it kind of ties up with that intro grab that you shared, and that's around, firstly, our sovereignty. Now, we do not have the military kit to defend our nation. We barely have the military kit to support the US or other nations on patrols around the world. We are seriously vulnerable should a serious conflict erupt in our region. And let's be honest, when you look at what's going on in Europe, when you look at what's going on in the Middle East, when you look at what Trump has just done in Venezuela, and that could have cascaded out of control in a very different way, it is likely that conflict will come to our region. And the obvious aggressor there is China, but you've also got states like North Korea, who, once they start firing off torpedoes at South Korea or Japan or Singapore, again, our key trading partners, that could have serious consequences for us. So there's our military preparedness, but there's also our supply chain security. If war were to kick off, can we keep the lights on? Can we keep shops stocked? And can we keep Australia running? And at the moment, when you look at our fuel security, our agricultural security, be it fertilisers, be it agrochemicals, be it even things like medical products, medical plastics, we are completely woefully exposed. So that's the first thing. Second thing then comes to energy, and there's a lot of work to be done on taxation and productivity and all these other issues of reform, but unless you've got cheap energy, it's all for naught. Energy is the fundamental input into the economy, whether you grow it, dig it up, manufacture it, transport it, refrigerate it, purchase it, consume it at home. That requires energy as an input, and if your energy is expensive, then you're going to be paying for that in inflation and decreased ability to consume goods and services. So we have to get energy policy right. And then lastly, demography. Are we a country? Are we a nation? Are we a peoples that share a bond of blood and kinship and history and tradition? Or are we an economic zone? And my worry is we've been operating like an economic zone for far too long. We've used people as a means of kind of quantitative easing to stimulate economic growth without making the hard reforms, without making sure that we have cheap energy. And we're not a particularly good economic zone at that. We are not attractive for foreign investors. We are making it very, very difficult to manufacture or even get our primary resources extracted here in this country. And this can only lead to decline. And I'm looking at nations like South Africa. I look at nations like Argentina, and the idea that we aren't headed for a similar fate unless we right the ship quickly, that's something that deeply concerns me. But we have everything we need here. We have the incredible people. We have the ingenuity. We have the energy resources. And to your point, the supply chain security, how do we fix this current crisis? We could create our own synthetic crude with coal to liquid. We could build our own hydrocracking refineries, which could produce diesel. We could do it here. Our recent report that you mentioned, we ran all the numbers. It would be economic viable, it would be commercial, it would be profitable. We could be an exporter. The only thing stopping us right now is the political will to approve these processes and get things up and running.
Absolutely stunning. Thank you so much for your time. Gerard Holland, if somebody wants to find out more about your organisation or you, how do they do that?
Yes, so I'm at the Page Research Centre. So if you just go to page.org.au, you can catch up with all of our reports and our most recent media. We are featured semi-regularly, or you can follow us on X, Instagram, and Facebook under the Page Research Centre. There's slight variations. It's either the Page Research Centre or Page Research, but there's only one of us. You'll find us with the green and black in our colours, and make sure you subscribe to our mailing list. And we'd love to bring more people along for the journey. And our focus really is better outcomes for rural and regional Australia, because that will produce better outcomes for all Australians. And so that's always, how do we produce things, manufacture things, keep that self-sufficiency? That's core to our operations and how we select what we want to talk about.
Yeah, Gerard, thank you very much. This is the Country Telegraph. Coming up next to follow on what we've just heard about what should be done with Australia. A guy called Joe Marino, I think he's just brilliant. And we came across one of his Facebook pages, so I've lifted something out just to promote his page, not stealing it. I want you to have a listen to this guy, because he's a fair dinkum Aussie. He calls a spade a shovel, and he says that we do need to take care of the farmers, because they feed this country.
You g'day, Joe Marino here from Farmer Pride. Welcome to the country where we grow your food and fibre. Settle down, you teal voters and NRL players. It's not what you think. This is lime. And lime, it comes out of the ground. Just comes out of the ground near Mudgee, actually. And lime is one of the last things that comes out of the ground in this country that we're allowed to use and keep in this country. The rest of the stuff that comes out of the ground in this country goes overseas, because we've been governed by weak, pathetic morons for the last 30 years. Ben Harper wrote, "The greatest gift is from the earth, and what's from the earth is of the greatest worth." Well, we put this lime out, which is from this earth. We put it out and mix it with salt, another natural mineral, and the sheepies come in and lick it every now and then out of this steel bucket here. Apparently good for their gut, metabolism, etc. Just what I've been told. You've got to trust the experts. Anyway, they seem to be doing very, very well on it during this very, very dry period we're having. Anyway, they're going okay, and that can only be a good thing.
Outback Queensland. It's stepping back about 100 million years.
It's soaking in the surrounds.
It's wide open for adventure.
It's where dinner puts up a fight.
And it's your round for new stories.
It's switching on easy mode.
And a whole lot of incredible.
Outback Queensland. It's something else. Book your holiday now.
Australian made means made right here in Australia. But it's more than just where it's made. It means made by Australians, backing local businesses and jobs. Made for the way we live, right here. It's why buying Australian made just feels right. Australian made, made right here.
And welcome back to the Country Telegraph. Behind me, the picture is the thriving settlement of Witchyproof in Victorian. I've had her on before, but they do have some pretty mean pies. And now with the cold weather upon us, if you're driving to Melbourne, on the left-hand side, it's the first shop. And they have magnificent pies. And they also have fish and chips. Great place to stop if you're driving from Mildura quickly. Okay, Kaylin Lococo lives in Julia Creek. That's a town, a massive town, 500 people in outback Queensland. He has a day job, but he volunteers tirelessly as president of the Julia Creek DirtnDust Festival, taking place in May on the 29th and 30th. And they're celebrating 30 years. First of all, Kaylin, thanks for joining us.
No worries, Mike. Thanks for having us on.
Tell us about Julia Creek. Have you got a stop sign yet?
Yeah, mate, no traffic lights here. No, Julia Creek's about 650 k's west of Townsville and about 250 k's east of Mount Isa along the Flinders Highway. So, as you said, a little town of about fluctuates between 400 and 500 people. But, come the DirtnDust Fest every year, we sort of, get up to around 2,000. So it's a pretty good effort to, grow your population by that much for one weekend a year.
Hey, are you a bushy or are you from the Big Smoke?
No, mate, I'm from Charters Towers originally.
You're bushy.
Not too far from home out here. So, it's a great place.
What's the appeal of living in the bush? I mean, I lived in a place called Serasia near Mildura. The township would have been one service station. It's called Cardross, but we're only like 10 k's from real people. Tell me about Julia Creek. What's there to do?
Plenty to do. It's a great little town. Our local caravan park and visitor information centre are pretty well known. Got some great attractions that we welcome a lot of grey nomads and families here year in, year out in the cooler months. But, Macy's your quintessential Aussie town. Got a pub, a servo, a couple of hardware shops, a butcher, news agent, a couple of cafes, sort of all you need. Ideally located, sort of where we're positioned is sort of praised ourselves as the gateway to the Gulf. So not too far to head up to Corumba and Normanton, sort of not too far to head inland either through Winton and Longreach. So, we're sort of in a good central location and, just a good old little outback town.
What about, you got a bakery there? What about your pies? You've got to have a pie.
Yeah, mate, good pies here. Good pies here at the bakery. It's always a big hit for all the travellers when they're coming through.
Looking at you here, you probably stop at you wouldn't go any more than half a dozen, would you, at a time?
No, I try not to, mate.
Pie and a beer. Man, that's real Aussie, isn't it? Tell us about the festival. 30 years. It's a long time.
Yeah, it is, mate. So a lot of hard-working committee members and volunteers over the time. So I've only been in Julia Creek for nearly 8 years, so I missed the first 20-odd.
You're
not even a local yet. But no, mate, it started around the bar of the Town and Country Club, which is no longer open. Just a few locals wanted to get together and come up with a reason to put Julia Creek on the map. So they thought, bugger it, we'll start a triathlon and then have a bull ride. It sort of grew from there and sort of got really big, there's a lot of professional athletes and stuff would come out for the triathlon and a lot of professional bull riders and stuff like that. So, then COVID happened, so sort of shut the doors there for a couple of years with no real events or anyone being able to travel. And then a new committee with a few hard-working locals sort of picked up the reins again and reinvented it now. So it's got 2 nights of rodeo, bulls and bronc riding, the Artesian Express race day, which I see just flashed up on the screen there, on the Saturday afternoon. So Saturday morning is a 5, 10 or 15k Tough Mudder themed adventure run, and then 2 nights of live entertainment, live music, novelty games, the famous Australia's Best Butt competition. That always something for everybody, we say.
What was that one? Australia's what?
Yeah, Australia's Best Butt competition. A key novelty thing that, again, popped up, I think, a few years back with a power outage. They thought, how can we keep the crowd entertained while the musicians couldn't play? So they, got a few people up there in their jeans and loudest cheer wins. So, yeah, they have the heats on the Friday night and then the final on Saturday night as well. So,
You could have had a slogan like, I was going to say Moonies, but no, you could have had a slogan like Bummer for it.
yeah.
So anyway, now how did you get to become president, El Presidento?
Oh, mate, just, sort of
You were the
bad
last
luck,
one
really.
standing.
No, no, as I said, a few of the locals, sort of the last 4 or 5 years took it back over, and they're just looking for someone else to step up. So I thought, I don't have enough on, so why not chuck my hand up for this? And it's just I like giving back to the community, and it's when you get, as I said, when you get 2,000 people in your town for a weekend, that's 4 or 5 times your local population. It's great to see, and it's good for the economy. It's good for the people come and see the Dirt and Dust, and they hopefully come back in their caravans and that in the future. So it's just a good thing for outback Queensland. All in our area are sort of struggling a bit at the moment, but hopefully, the fuel hopefully keeps getting cheaper and cheaper. More people will start heading our way, but and just people travelling to the event too through all the little towns like ours. It's just a good thing to support the bush in general, I suppose.
What about accommodation? I mean, I would imagine bring your own.
Yeah, mate, pretty much. For the volume of people we have, we have our caravan park. Like for those with their own vans and some powered and unpowered camping. The council runs a free camp for caravans down along the creek, and at the racetrack showground sort of venue, which is about 1.5 k's from the Dirt and Dust precinct. We have camping there all weekend, where we probably fit 80 or 90% of the crowd. So I think it's $25 a night for your site, and you can flag, caravan, rooftop tent, bus, car, you name it. You can sleep. If
you wouldn't want to sleep out at night though, because if it gets cold.
Yeah, May's not too bad. We always encourage people to bring a couple of woolies, but it's coming into real nice weather. Nice, coolish days, and then reasonably cool nights, and just good time for everyone to enjoy the festival.
Besides the butt competition, and no butts allowed here, I need to know, what's your favourite event? You must have a favourite one.
Oh, mate, I'll try and be impartial, but the rodeo is great. With some great live music. I'm partial to a punt in a day at the track, so I also like going over to the horse racing. But mate, I wouldn't hardly like to single one out. But it's just a great festival. As I said, there's something for everybody. There's kids rides, there's live music, there's novelty games, there's got our own merchandise, so you can take something away with you. It's just one of those things we encourage everyone to tick off their bucket list.
Absolutely brilliant. Where do they come from? The crowd, are they all over Queensland and other parts of Australia?
Typically, mate, a lot of sort of in region, so along the Flinders Highway sort of towns, or Tamir and Isa. We do get quite a few nomads and that as well, travelling people. But sort of mostly sort of in our region, and a few from all over Queensland mainly is probably our biggest attraction.
What about if you're there for a few days, you're going to get a bit hungry, and you need a few drinks to wash down the dust. Plenty of drinking or drinks of all sorts, alcohol, non-alcoholic. Are they available on site?
Yeah, definitely, mate. We keep the crowd nice and hydrated. We have a range of food vendors as well. As you said, it'd be hard for the pub to keep up with that many people for the weekend. So, the committee, we always try and organise, a range of food vans. We do like a breakfast at the Adventure Run Saturday morning. We do a recovery breakfast Sunday morning at the camping before people head off. So, we strive ourselves on having plenty of cold beer as well. So, definitely something for everybody here in Julia Creek.
Absolutely brilliant. Now, if somebody wants to find out more about the Dirt and Dust Festival, how do they do that?
Probably follow us on social media. So our social media team does a great job. Just on Facebook or Instagram, just Julia Creek Dirt and Dust Festival. Otherwise, go to www.dirtnddust.com. That's where you get all your tickets. So encourage everyone to book their tickets nice and early. We have early bird specials, so if everyone is planning a trip or starting to make their plans for later on in the year, we're only about 5 or 6 weeks away now. So encourage everyone to book in. You can buy your camping weekend pass, one night pass, races, tickets, all on the website. So
how far are you from Brizzy?
About 1,600 k's, I think.
Jeepers. Man, oh man! So you probably in most people's cases, though, you probably need to do this over a couple of nights to get there, which is a great experience anyway, because outback Queensland is stunning. And what about any? Because it's a long way to drive. When they're finished, doors shut. People can they hang around for a couple of days, or do they have to leave right away? Or
no, mate, we normally keep the camping area open for Sunday, and then sort of people can move on Monday. But as I said, the caravan park and the the RV free site that the council both run, plenty of accommodation either side of the festival during the day. During the 2 days, it's often pretty tight, so encourage people to try and book there ahead early too. But we've got plenty of good stuff to see in Julia Creek. And as you said, the outback, there's plenty to see and do around our area. If you want to make a trip of it, we suggest, this is the year to do it after the big wet season, which is why we've had to push back until this May date. We're normally in April. Julia Creek's had about 1,200 mil of rain so far, which is about 2.5 times our average. So
a lot of rain.
It is, but the countryside everywhere is looking fantastic. If people really want to get out and see the bush in full green, this will be the year to do it.
You got a trail bike?
No, mate. I foot falcon mostly.
Because the trail bike, magnificent in mud.
Everything's starting to dry out now, so there should be no dramas within the next 5 or 6 weeks of having everything dried and presented nicely and beautiful and green and ready for the festival.
Absolutely brilliant. Kaylin, thank you so much for your time. That's the Julia Creek Dirt and Dust Festival. It's on the 29th and 30th of May. Get in now and make your bookings. It's hey, by the way, can you have a sellout? Or because you've got plenty of land there, you just keep getting bigger and bigger, wouldn't you?
Yeah, mate, no, we don't have a sellout. But we just encourage people to book early to make the most of the discounts, and the more the merrier. As I said, we got plenty of space, plenty of cold drinks, plenty of food.
Excellent.
Plenty to do. So make sure everyone comes and visits.
All you need is beer and some food too. Beer, white bread, sausages, onions, sauce, and no flies. That's all you want.
That's right.
Thanks very much, mate. Looking forward to talking to you two more about this towards the maybe a week beforehand, just to again promote it and find out how it's all going. Kaylin, thank you so much for your time. This is the Country Telegraph.
Experience the ultimate day out at the Mildura Field Days happening on May 15th and 16th at the Mildura Racecourse. Discover a vast array of exhibits, from home gardening tools to the latest in large-scale farm machinery. Explore lifestyle, leisure, home products and services, and much more. Don't miss this opportunity to learn, explore and have fun. Enjoy free entertainment, hands-on pets, live music and delicious food. Mark your calendar and join us for an unforgettable experience at the Mildura Field Days.
Warren Clark has been Chief Executive Officer of the National Road Transport Association since November 2015. And he's 10 years, or 11 years almost, at the helm. He has successfully grown and managed the organisation through a period of unprecedented challenges. A certified chartered accountant, he holds a Bachelor of Financial Management from the University of New England. I'm going to talk to Warren today about his members and how they are faring in this current climate at the moment. Warren, thanks for joining us. How are they faring, by the way? And thank you for joining us.
No problems, Mike. Well, I think you actually said it, unprecedented times. It seems to be been the same for some time, but the current fuel crisis is certainly got everyone's attention, the country, if not the world, but it's having a lot of impact on the road freight industry.
Tell us about NatRoad and its membership.
Well, we're a national-based organisation. We survive purely on our own funding and our members. We've got about 2,500 businesses, so a business can range from 1 truck to 1,000 trucks across the country, all freight tasks, all types of people, and we represent them, soul of the earth, mum and dad businesses, right through to the very, very large. So our organisation is about trying to cut through the red tape, trying to make it easier for business and literally trying to keep them on the road.
Many of your members, are they cap city based or regional areas?
Oh, look, we've got a mixture everywhere really. We have a large portion of members that do a lot of long distance freight, so they are going into regional remote areas, a lot up and down the main freeways. We've got a really big mix, to be honest. Guys pulling triple road trains from, central New South Wales to Darwin, through to your couriers that run around your cities. So, yeah, it's a pretty big mix.
Are there some states that are probably feeling the crisis more? What are those states? Because I would imagine that each state has its own unique problems and generally created by government.
Look, I'd have to say that all the states at the moment, the fuel crisis is impacting the whole country. But some states, like the northern states, have dealt with, floods and natural disasters, and it just keeps going on and on forever. But the fuel crisis itself it doesn't discriminate. It's across every state, but it's probably been felt worse in the regional and remote areas where you've got, we've had shortages of supplies and we've had large fluctuation in pricing. So, we think we've got it bad in the eastern seaboard. The fuel doubles, but when you're talking about fuel doubling in remote WA and remote NT, it's quite a bit of difference.
It's an incredible operation too. How's it changed from when you, from say 2015 to now? First of all, some people say, things have changed too fast in some areas, some industries, and others say, it's still going about as it was 10 years ago. What about with your group?
Well, look, everything changes, as you know. I think the biggest issue with freight, though, is that it consistently seems to get more and more regulation than any other sector in the country. With our industry, though, it's still delivering the same thing. Everything that appears on a dining room table, has been on a truck at some stage, right? So road freight touches everyone, but our issues seem to get more and more each year, as general business would do. But, we've got things in our industry, and we're very, very subject to, the larger end of town dictating prices. We've got this phenomenon at the moment where we've got a lot of sham contracting coming into the country, and this is decimating some of the traditional transport operators. And then when you put that on top of, more and more regulation, more and more burden, sometimes people look at it and go, well, is it worth it? There's still a good living in it. It's hard through these times, there's no doubt about it. And what will fall out of this fuel crisis, it's anyone's guess, really.
You mentioned sham contracting. Could you expand on that for me?
Yeah, so basically how this works is that people come into the industry, They literally drive as drivers for a company, and they are asked or get an ABN. So what that enables them to do is to compete unfairly with the genuine contractor, and we're not against the genuine contractor. That's our main member, and we support and promote people to be contractors. But these people are literally employees working for companies. The company is able to undercut the legitimate business. No payroll tax, no superannuation. Sometimes they're not paying GST, etc., etc. So the undercutting is between 20 and 40%, depending on the operation. And what we found that it literally puts the business that's doing everything right, puts a lot of pressure on him, and the shonky guy, well, he gets the work, but eventually it catches up with him, he goes out of business, and it's also linked a bit to maintenance and safety on the road. So not a good situation. That's our biggest challenges, but at the moment, it's fuel, it's cash flow, it's trying to get through the next 3 months to keep everyone happy.
Because I'm not a great fan, by the way, of government, whether it's state or federal. But is there have they actually seen the light? I mean, had an epiphany and said, okay, we now need to look after this part of the world, this industry, because if we don't get things delivered. And if they are delivered, they're in all sorts of state of disrepair.
Yeah, look, I would honestly say that until recently, transport was not taken seriously in the federal parliament, and it's a lot of lobbying. Like, there's a lot of hours by various groups that have gone into this. We've had some great support from Western Australian Senator Glenn Sterle. He's lifted the image of transport within the parties. Transport is seen as the low end of everything, and therefore everything can be absorbed by transport. But we've worked hard, we've lobbied hard, we've talked to a lot of politicians, as a lot of people have, and I believe that this current government is starting to take transport very, very seriously. I mean, you've got to remember also that the Prime Minister at one stage was a Transport Minister, and a lot of the stuff that we have asked for in this current crisis, the government has tried to accommodate it and tried to bring it into place.
So I think the zero interest loans to businesses, which also is a flow on for you guys, has that been welcomed?
Well, it only recently got introduced, as in Monday. Look, like I say to everyone, cash is king in this industry, and if you don't have the working capital to pay to fill your trucks, to keep your trucks on the road, then you're going to stop. Your truck is going to be parked up in the depot or beside the road. So the way that we're looking at it is that it's another tool that you can use to keep your business afloat. We're suggesting that people seriously look at it to help with their cash flow. When your fuel price doubles overnight, what seems like not very much money all of a sudden becomes a real issue, right? So to fund that, small businesses, particularly mum and dad businesses and rural and regional businesses, often don't have the capital to do it. So we've pushed pretty hard with the government to open up these loans, that there is avenue for business to get an interest-free loan. And the other thing that you've got to look at, Mike, is that a lot of these businesses don't get paid every week like a wage earner. Their money comes minimum 30 days, 60, 90, right out to 180 days. So think about carrying the fuel cost out to 150 and 180 days. If you can use these loans to actually cover your working capital for when you get paid and then pay it back, then it's done its purpose. It's kept people in business.
And it also means the wife talks to you.
Yeah. Well, that's the other thing, right? People don't, and that's a serious note, but people don't realise that, a small trucking business, if you don't have the wheels turning, then you can't make your payments on your trucks. And then your business stops, and then you probably got it secured by your house or your property. So there's a problem there, and then eventually you have breakdowns in family. So, not trying to be doom and gloom, but it was a very good thing that the government did to actually make these loans available and to give everyone else a tool to stay in business.
Yeah, it's a pretty critical time at the moment. And I know that when I go travelling, always love being surrounded by trucks because you know that they're great drivers.
Yeah.
And then they put their indicator on for you when it's safe to pass by, and off you go.
Yeah.
But they're an excellent addition to a long trip, and I think they are so important for this country. Without the trucker, truckie, basically, we're stuffed, and we do need to look after them. If somebody wants to find out a little more about your organisation, how do they do that?
Well, they can call us, but I mean, best place to start is the website, which is obviously netroad.com.au. Start there, give us a call, see how you can be involved. We're not for everyone, but what we do is we do the hard work for you. People don't understand the level that we go to. I mean, just in this instance here, it's very hard for single and individual operators to go up to Parliament House and fight for things. But, if you look at it, the things that we've been asking for, like, get rid of the road user charge, and they've done that for 3 months. The fuel excise has been halved. We've got ATO support for, your GST and your BAS payments and stuff like that. And we've been successful in pushing for the banks to look at, deferring payments, refinancing loans, all that sort of thing. And the other thing that the states have done is to allow greater access for high productivity vehicles. So when you look at the things that we do, it's pretty hard for individuals to take that fight up. So have a look. I think there'll be something there for everyone, but give us a call. We've always got someone to talk to people.
Yeah, absolutely brilliant. Warren Clark from NetRoad, thank you so much for your time, and let's hope this crisis, which should never have happened in the first place, let's hope it just fixes quickly, because could you imagine us talking about this in 12 months' time?
Unfortunately, Mike, I think it's going to go on for a while unless someone's got a magic wand to save that problem in the Middle East. So,
yeah, maybe a president, when he attacks a country, he needs to make sure he has an exit plan. Anyway, it's just a small thought.
All right. Well, thanks for your time.
Thank you so much for your time. This is the Country Telegraph. Almost time for me, but first of all, we have to find out what's happening on the weather front right across the country.
Hello from the Bureau. This is the National Weather Forecast. Today's Tuesday, but of course this is Wednesday's weather we are discussing. That'll be Wednesday the 22nd of April, and it's a pretty clear map across the country at the moment. We've got a rapidly weakening cold front moving through the south with high pressure to either side of it. That's going to give us actually some really warm weather for the time of year across much of southern and southeastern Australia. Rainfall really hard to find on the map. There will be a bit through Tasmania in the afternoon, evening. Some light showers around this coastline here and a few late season storms up in the north. For Queensland, a shower or two possible right on the coastline all the way from about the Whitsundays down to the southeast, but you really do have to live within a couple of kilometres of the beach to really notice it. They will not push far inland at all, and they will be extremely light. So very little rainfall here. Bright, sunny, clear for almost everyone. Slightly enhanced showers around the north tropical coast, perhaps 5 to 25 millimetres up there. It will be a touch cool for the east coast of New South Wales tomorrow. Quite cloudy as well, right here from Wollongong all the way up to the state border. There will be some showers in the east. Most of those showers will be north of Newcastle. So the likes of the mid-north coast and northern rivers could see between 5 and 10 millimetres of rain tomorrow. Whereas down here in the south, Newcastle, Sydney, Wollongong, perhaps just 1 or 2 light showers, not tipping much into those rain gauges. On the mountains and out to the west, a clear, bright, sunny day. Quite cool mornings, but mild afternoons. Rather warm weather across the southeast, certainly for Victoria, well above the average for April. Both the daytime highs, which are in the mid-20s for much of the state, but also the overnight minimum temperatures. Take a look at that. Melbourne, 14 degrees as the overnight low as we head into tomorrow morning. Much, much above the average for this time of year. It will be a mild, verging on warm morning and day for Tasmania, becoming cloudy in the afternoon, and the wind will pick up. Northerlies get going through the afternoon. Eventually some rain arrives as well. Rain into the west for the afternoon. Most other areas, including Launceston and Hobart, will be dry for the vast majority of the day, but we could see a little bit of rainfall pushing in towards the evening. That could really hit anyone in the state through the last couple of hours of the day. Clear, bright, sunny conditions across South Australia. Possible early morning shower for Kangaroo Island and the Eyre Peninsula. That will be gone by 9 a.m. and then it is sunny and bright absolutely everywhere. High pressure nearby, temperatures above average, mid to high 20s in the south and low 30s in the north. And it's a day between cold fronts for Western Australia. We had that powerful cold front move through to start the week. Another cold front coming on Thursday, but that means Wednesday's a nice, bright, settled and sunny day in between. Clear skies and sunshine everywhere you look. Temperatures aren't especially warm, low 20s down in the south and southwest, warmer inland and of course much, much warmer through parts of the Gascoyne and Pilbara, but sunny for all of those areas. And by the end of this week, we'll have some drier air up north. Might feel like the wet season is pretty much coming to a close, but before we get there, we have a couple more days of elevated humidity, showers and thunderstorms across the top end, including for Darwin, and that's a chance on Wednesday that we could see some wet weather, some late season rainfall for the top end, but it really is restricted to the far north of Australia. Anyone south of Katherine or Kununurra, not really seeing any of that activity. Should be dry and sunny across the Kimberley, dry and sunny through the Carpentaria and Barkly and all the way down towards Alice Springs. Find more info on our website or app, or you can check back here tomorrow for an update to the forecast. That's all I have for you for today though. Thank you so much for watching.
Okay, that's the weather. Looks okay for a barbecue, but who knows? Weekend is still a few days away. I think we need to start a movement that we only have a 2-day week, Saturday and Sunday. I'll get told off for that one, but I like the idea. Actually, Thursday night, we want that because the footy's on. Friday night, so we're going to have 2 full days and nights and a couple of nights thrown in for good measure. Go and work that one out. But, got to watch the footy, got to have it, have a nice relaxing weekend as your nerves go to outside the planet. You just go nuts. If you follow St Kilda anyway, that's what happens. Anyway, have a great day today. Thank you for being a part of the show. We appreciate it very much. I said this to someone, be kind to your neighbours. And this person reminded me, this is a funny little story, reminded me that a TV person in the US used to say, be kind to your neighbours. And she was accused of eating people. I don't eat people, all right? Although at the barbecue, who knows? If you don't like mum, just push it to the side of the plate. Okay, that's about it. Have a great one. I'll catch you tomorrow. This has been not the Talking Telegraph, no, the Country Telegraph. Thank you so much.